The city was alive with lights, cars, and the sound of people talking. Everyone was busy. Everyone was in a hurry. But in the middle of this busy street, there was one man who felt completely alone. His name was Daniel. Daniel walked slowly, with his head down. His steps were heavy, as if he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Around him, people laughed, spoke on their phones, and rushed to their destinations. But no one looked at him. No one noticed him. He was invisible in a crowd full of life. That evening was colder than usual. The wind touched his face, but it was not just the weather that made him shiver. It was the emptiness inside him. He had no family around. His friends had left him one by one. And now, he was just walking, without any real reason, without any real hope. As he crossed the street, he held his old bag close. Inside, there was almost nothing, just a notebook, a pen, and some coins. Life had taken away everything else. The city lights looked bright, but for Daniel, they only reminded him of how dark his own life had become. He thought to himself, why am I even here? Does anyone care if I disappear? He stopped near a small cafe, but he didn't go inside. He only stood there, looking through the glass window. Families were eating together. Friends were laughing. Couples were smiling at each other. He wanted to step inside, but he knew he didn't have enough money to buy even a single cup of coffee. So, he turned away. His stomach was empty, but his heart felt even more empty. As Daniel walked further, something unexpected happened. His foot slipped on the wet road. He fell to the ground. His bag opened, and the few coins he had rolled away in different directions. People around him saw it happen, but nobody stopped. Some looked for a second and then turned their heads. Others walked even faster, pretending they didn't notice. Daniel quickly tried to gather his coins with shaking hands. His knees hurt, his heart hurt even more. He thought, of course, why would anyone stop for me? He sat there for a moment, on the cold ground, coins in his hand. The noise of cars and people filled the air, but he felt like he was in complete silence. A silence that screamed louder than the traffic. Then, something strange caught his attention. A pair of shoes stopped in front of him. Daniel slowly lifted his eyes. There stood a man, a stranger. His face was calm, his eyes soft. He was not dressed like a rich businessman. He looked ordinary, just like anyone else in the crowd. But there was something different about him. Something that Daniel could not understand right away. The stranger bent down, picked up the last coin from the road, and gently placed it in Daniel's hand. Are you okay? The stranger asked in a quiet, kind voice. Daniel froze. Nobody had asked him that question in a very long time. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His throat felt dry. The stranger waited patiently, his eyes full of genuine concern. He didn't look away, he didn't hurry to leave. For the first time that night, someone had stopped, someone had noticed him. Daniel felt a strange mix of emotions, confusion, relief, and even fear. Why was this man helping? What did he want? The crowd around them kept moving, as if nothing had changed. But for Daniel, the world had stopped at that very moment. He finally managed to whisper, I'm fine. I think. But deep inside, he knew he was not fine at all. The stranger gave a small smile. You don't look fine. Those words hit Daniel harder than he expected. Nobody had ever looked into his eyes and spoken with such honesty. Nobody had cared enough to say it. For a few seconds, Daniel stayed silent. He didn't know what to say. His heart was beating faster now. The stranger stood there, still waiting. He didn't seem to be in a rush. His presence felt calm, almost safe. And in that moment, Daniel wondered, who is this man? Why does he care? Why did he stop, when the whole world kept walking? That evening, in the middle of a noisy city, two people stood still, one broken and lost, the other unknown but kind. Daniel didn't know it yet, but this meeting was about to change everything. The stranger stood in front of Daniel, calm and patient. His voice was soft, almost too soft for the noisy city around them. Yet Daniel heard every word clearly, as if the world had gone quiet. Are you sure you're okay? The stranger repeated. Daniel nodded quickly, trying to avoid the man's eyes. He wanted to appear strong, but deep inside, he felt broken. His knees still hurt from the fall, but it was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. The stranger noticed Daniel's hesitation. He didn't step away. Instead, he crouched down so they were at the same level. He looked directly into Daniel's tired eyes. "You don't have to lie," the stranger said softly. Daniel froze. Nobody had ever spoken to him like that, not in a long time. Most people didn't care enough to ask questions, and those who did never stayed long enough to hear the real answers. The stranger extended his hand. Daniel hesitated for a second, then slowly placed his shaky hand in his. The stranger helped him stand. "You dropped your coins," the man said, handing them back one by one. His hands were warm, steady, and filled with quiet kindness. Daniel looked at him closely now. He seemed ordinary, simple clothes, a plain jacket, old shoes. He didn't look powerful or rich. Yet there was something unusual about him. Something Daniel couldn't describe. "Thank you," Daniel whispered. The stranger nodded. "No need to thank me. Anyone would do the same." Daniel almost laughed inside. Anyone? He had just seen dozens of people walk past him without even stopping. This man was not like anyone. He was different. There was an awkward silence between them. The street was still busy, lights flashing, people rushing, cars honking. But for Daniel, it felt like the whole world had narrowed down to just him and this stranger. The stranger looked at Daniel's bag. "Do you have somewhere to go?" he asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. The truth was painful. He had nowhere. He had been wandering for days, sleeping wherever he could. Sometimes in a park. Sometimes on a bench. Sometimes in a corner where no one would notice. He didn't want to admit it. But the stranger's eyes made it difficult to lie. They were kind, but also sharp, as if he could see through every wall Daniel had built. I'll manage," Daniel finally said. The stranger tilted his head slightly, studying him. "Manage," he repeated. "That doesn't sound safe." Daniel looked down again. He felt embarrassed. Why was he standing here, explaining himself to someone he had just met? Why did this stranger care? For a moment, Daniel thought of walking away. He could just disappear into the crowd, pretend this never happened. But something inside him refused. Something told him he needed this conversation. The stranger spoke again, breaking the silence. "I'm not here to judge you. I just thought, maybe you could use a little help." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to say no. He wanted to act strong. But the truth was, he did need help. More than anything. Still, he stayed quiet. The stranger didn't push. Instead, he gave a small smile. "Let me buy you a cup of tea. Nothing more. Just tea. You look like you could use it." Daniel blinked. His first instinct was to refuse. Why would a stranger spend money on him? What if he had bad intentions? But then, he thought of the cafe he had stood outside earlier, staring at families and friends inside. He thought of the warmth, the laughter, the smell of food. His stomach growled loudly, as if answering for him. He felt embarrassed again, but the stranger only chuckled gently. "See, even your stomach agrees," the man said. For the first time that night, Daniel smiled a little. A weak smile, but real. "Okay," Daniel finally said, almost in a whisper. The stranger nodded, pleased. "Good. Let's go." They walked side by side through the busy street. Daniel still felt nervous, but there was also a strange sense of safety near this man. He didn't know why. Maybe it was the way the stranger spoke. Maybe it was the way he looked at him, not with pity, not with judgment, but with simple kindness. As they reached a small tea stall at the corner, the stranger ordered 2 cups. He paid quickly, without making a big deal out of it. Daniel held the warm cup in his cold hands. The first sip almost brought tears to his eyes. It wasn't just tea. It was comfort. It was warmth he hadn't felt in weeks. The stranger didn't rush him. He just sat there quietly, sipping his own tea, giving Daniel space to breathe. After a while, the stranger asked, "So, what's your name?" Daniel hesitated, then answered softly, "Daniel." The stranger smiled. "Nice to meet you, Daniel. My name is Adam." Daniel repeated the name in his head. Adam. A simple name, but it already carried weight in his heart. And then he wondered again, who is this man? Why does he care? And why does it feel like meeting him was not an accident? Little did Daniel know, Adam was about to become the most important stranger he would ever meet. The tea stall was small and crowded, but to Daniel, it felt like the warmest place he had stepped into in months. He held the paper cup tightly in his hands, feeling the heat travel through his cold fingers. Each sip felt like comfort flowing into his body. Adam sat across from him, calm and quiet. He didn't ask too many questions, he didn't push for answers. He simply gave Daniel the space to breathe. For Daniel, that silence was powerful. It wasn't empty. It was filled with understanding. Daniel kept his eyes on the cup. He didn't want to look up too much. He was still unsure. Why was this stranger being so kind? What did he want in return? But Adam broke the silence with a gentle laugh. "It feels good, doesn't it? Warm tea on a cold evening." Daniel nodded. "Yes, it does." "Sometimes," Adam continued, "it's not about the tea. It's about knowing you're not drinking it alone." Those words hit Daniel deep. He blinked quickly, fighting the wetness in his eyes. He couldn't remember the last time he had shared a simple moment like this with anyone. After a few minutes, Adam reached into his bag and pulled out a small packet of biscuits. He opened it and placed it on the table between them. "Eat," he said casually. "You must be hungry." Daniel stared at the packet. He didn't move. His pride and his hunger were fighting inside him. He didn't want to look weak, but the truth was, his stomach was aching for food. Adam noticed his hesitation. "Don't worry. It's just biscuits. Nothing special. But sharing makes it taste better." Daniel finally picked up one. The moment he took a bite, the crunch filled his mouth, and tears filled his eyes. It was the simplest food, yet in that moment, it felt like a feast. He whispered, "Thank you." Adam smiled softly. "You don't need to thank me, Daniel. It's just food." But for Daniel, it was not just food. It was care. It was humanity. It was a reminder that he still mattered, even if the world had made him believe otherwise. They sat there for a while, sipping tea, eating biscuits, and watching the crowd move past them. People hurried by, busy with their lives, not noticing the quiet bond forming between two strangers at a small tea stall. After a long pause, Adam asked gently, "Do you want to talk?" Daniel froze. His first instinct was to stay silent. Talking meant opening wounds. Talking meant facing truths he had been running from. But Adam's voice was different. It didn't sound demanding. It sounded safe. Slowly, Daniel spoke. His words were shaky, but once he started, they wouldn't stop. He talked about losing his job. He talked about the nights he had slept on benches. He talked about the loneliness, the silence, and the way people ignored him as if he didn't exist. Adam listened carefully, never interrupting, never judging. His eyes stayed fixed on Daniel, not with pity, but with respect. As if Daniel's pain deserved to be heard. When Daniel finally stopped, his chest felt lighter. He looked down, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I talked too much." Adam shook his head. "Don't be sorry. Sometimes, letting the words out is the first step to healing." Those simple words gave Daniel more comfort than he could explain. For so long, he had carried his pain alone. Tonight, for the first time, he felt he didn't have to. As they finished the last sips of tea, Adam reached into his pocket and placed a small note on the table. Daniel frowned. "What is this?" Adam smiled. "It's just a little money. Enough for food tonight. Take it." Daniel immediately shook his head. "No. I can't. You've already done enough. I can't take more." Adam's smile didn't fade. "It's not about money, Daniel. It's about kindness. Sometimes we all need a little help. And one day, maybe you'll help someone else. That's how kindness works, it travels." Daniel stared at the note, then at Adam. His throat tightened. Nobody had ever said something like that to him before. Finally, with shaking hands, he accepted it. Not because of the money, but because of the love hidden inside that gesture. The noise of the street seemed far away now. For Daniel, the world had slowed down. All he could see was Adam, this mysterious man who appeared from nowhere and gave him something priceless, hope. That night, as they got up from the stall, Daniel realized something. It wasn't the tea. It wasn't the biscuits. It wasn't even the money. It was the feeling of being seen. The feeling of being valued by someone who had no reason to care. And Daniel knew, this was no ordinary meeting. This was fate. He walked beside Adam, his steps lighter than before. But in his heart, questions still burned. Who really is this man? And why did he choose me? The night had grown colder, but Daniel did not feel it anymore. He walked beside Adam, holding his old bag close, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a little lighter. The weight on his chest was still there, but it didn't crush him like before. They reached a quiet park at the end of the street. Most people had gone home. The benches were empty, and the sound of leaves moving in the wind filled the silence. Adam pointed to a bench. "Let's sit here for a while," he said. Daniel nodded. He was tired, both in body and soul. They sat down, side by side, under a dim streetlight. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Daniel kept staring at the ground, while Adam looked at the sky. It was a strange silence, not heavy, not awkward. It was the kind of silence that felt safe. Finally, Adam broke it. "Do you know why I stopped for you today?" Daniel looked up, surprised. "Why?" Adam turned his head slowly. His eyes were calm but serious. "Because once, a long time ago, I was just like you." Daniel froze. "Like me?" Adam nodded. "Yes. Lost. Alone. Invisible. I know how it feels when the world keeps moving, and you are left behind. When nobody sees you, and you wonder if your life even matters." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. For the first time, he saw something deeper in Adam's eyes, something familiar. Pain. Adam continued, his voice steady but soft. "Years ago, I had nothing. I had no family around, no home, no money. I thought it was the end. I thought I was finished." Daniel leaned forward, listening carefully. Every word felt heavy, filled with truth. "But then," Adam said with a faint smile, "a stranger stopped for me. Just like I stopped for you tonight. He gave me food, listened to me, and told me something I never forgot." Daniel whispered, "What did he say?" Adam's eyes grew brighter, as if the memory was alive inside him. He said, "Sometimes, life pushes you to the ground so that you can learn how strong you really are. And sometimes, it sends a stranger to remind you that you're not alone." Daniel felt a chill run through his body. Those words sank deep into his heart. He repeated them silently, afraid he might forget. Adam looked at him. "That one stranger changed everything for me. He didn't stay in my life forever. But the kindness he gave me that night, it stayed. It gave me strength to keep going. To rebuild. To believe." Daniel's throat tightened. "And now, you're doing the same for me." Adam smiled gently. "Yes. Because kindness is not meant to stop. It's meant to move forward. One day, Daniel, you'll meet someone who feels like you do right now. And when that day comes, I hope you remember tonight." Daniel's eyes burned with tears. He quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. But Adam pretended not to notice. He just let him feel. The park was quiet around them. Only the soft wind and the distant sound of traffic filled the night. But inside Daniel, something had shifted. His chest still ached, but there was a small light glowing now, a hope he thought he had lost forever. After a long pause, Daniel asked, "Adam, why me? Out of all the people here, why did you stop for me?" Adam leaned back, his gaze fixed on the stars above. "Because sometimes, we don't choose. Sometimes, we are guided. I believe every meeting has a reason. Maybe tonight, I was meant to find you." Daniel felt a strange calmness. It was as if destiny itself had stepped into his broken life and placed Adam in front of him. For the first time in months, he felt something dangerous, something powerful. He felt hope. They sat there for a while longer, sharing stories. Adam spoke of his struggles, the nights he went hungry, the days he almost gave up. But he also spoke of the moments when small acts of kindness lifted him back up. Daniel listened, his heart opening more with every word. He realized something important. Adam was not just helping him. Adam was showing him a mirror, showing him that pain could be transformed, that brokenness was not the end. Finally, Adam stood up. It's getting late. You should rest. Daniel looked at him, afraid this moment would end. Will I see you again? He asked quietly. Adam gave a small smile. Maybe, maybe not. But remember, Daniel, this night is not about me. It's about you. What you do after this will matter more than whether we meet again. Daniel lowered his eyes, feeling both grateful and afraid. Adam's presence had become a light in his darkness. The thought of losing it already hurt. But deep inside, he knew Adam was right. This night was not just a meeting. It was a lesson. A seed of kindness planted inside him. And as Adam walked a few steps ahead, Daniel whispered to himself, this conversation, it changed everything. The park was almost empty now. The streetlights flickered, and the sound of the city was fading into the distance. Daniel and Adam had been sitting together for hours, though it didn't feel like it. For Daniel, time had passed too quickly. He had shared his pain, his fears, his emptiness. And Adam had listened, really listened, as if every word mattered. In return, Adam had shared his own story, a story filled with pain but also with strength. For the first time in months, Daniel didn't feel invisible. He didn't feel forgotten. He felt alive. But as the night grew darker, Daniel noticed something in Adam's eyes, a quiet sadness. It was as if Adam knew something Daniel didn't. Adam finally stood up. His movements were slow, almost heavy. Daniel looked up quickly. You're leaving. Adam nodded gently. Yes. It's late. You need to rest. And I must go. Daniel's heart sank. The thought of being alone again made him uneasy. This stranger, who had walked into his life only hours ago, now felt like the only light he had. Wait, Daniel said, his voice almost breaking. Can we meet again? Tomorrow maybe? Or sometime? Adam looked at him for a long moment. His smile was kind, but his eyes held something mysterious. Maybe, maybe not. Some people are not meant to stay forever, Daniel. Sometimes, they are just meant to remind us of something important. Daniel's chest tightened. But I don't even know you. I don't know where you live, what you do, anything. Adam placed a hand on his shoulder. His touch was steady, warm. You know the only thing that matters. That kindness is real. That you are not alone. The rest, you don't need to know. Daniel's throat burned. His eyes blurred with tears. He wanted to say more, but no words came. He didn't want this moment to end. Adam leaned closer and whispered, never lose hope. Even in your darkest night, remember, light can come from the most unexpected place. Daniel froze. Those words carved themselves into his heart. He knew he would never forget them. Before Daniel could respond, Adam stepped back. His figure looked calm under the dim streetlight, almost like a shadow. Daniel stood up quickly. Please, at least tell me why you chose me. Adam gave his final smile, soft and gentle. Because once, someone chose me too. With that, he turned and began to walk away. Daniel's feet wanted to move, to follow him, but something held him back. His body stayed frozen while his eyes followed every step Adam took. The distance between them grew. Adam's figure blended with the darkness of the street. In seconds, he disappeared into the crowd, as if he was never there. Daniel felt his chest ache. It was a strange pain, half sadness, half gratitude. He wanted to shout, to call Adam back, but no sound came out. The bench beside him was empty now. The park felt colder, the silence louder. He sat back down slowly, covering his face with his hands. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He whispered to himself, Why does it hurt this much? He was just a stranger. But deep down, Daniel knew Adam was not just a stranger. He was the one person who had stopped, the one person who had seen him when the whole world had walked past. That night, Daniel stayed in the park longer than he planned. He kept looking at the street where Adam had disappeared, hoping he would return. But he didn't. Still, Adam's words kept echoing in his mind. Never lose hope. Even in your darkest night, remember, light can come from the most unexpected place. Daniel repeated those words again and again, holding on to them like a lifeline. They were the only thing keeping him from falling back into the darkness. And though Adam was gone, Daniel felt something new inside him. A seed. A spark. A tiny flame of strength that hadn't been there before. Yes, Adam's goodbye had hurt. It felt like losing something precious. But it had also given Daniel something priceless, hope. As the night ended, Daniel stood up slowly. His steps were still heavy, but different now. They were not steps of a broken man. They were steps of someone who had been reminded that he mattered. And though he didn't know it yet, Adam's goodbye was not truly an end. It was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter Daniel would carry with him forever. The next morning, Daniel woke up with the same heavy sky above him. The city was still the same, busy streets, rushing people, loud voices. But inside him, something was different. Adam was gone. He had disappeared into the night without leaving an address, without leaving a number, without leaving anything behind. Except his words. Daniel carried those words like a treasure. Never lose hope. Even in your darkest night, remember, light can come from the most unexpected place. He repeated them again and again in his mind, almost like a prayer. That day, he walked the streets differently. His steps were slow, but not hopeless. His eyes still carried pain, but there was also a small light behind them now. He was not healed, not yet. But he had begun. Over the next few weeks, Daniel tried to change small things. He saved every coin he had and used it carefully. He searched for work, even if it was small, even if it was temporary. Some people rejected him, others ignored him. But every time he felt like giving up, Adam's voice echoed in his memory. Kindness travels. One day, you'll help someone else. Those words pushed him forward. And slowly, little by little, Daniel's life began to shift. He found a part-time job at a small shop. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy food, enough to feel human again. He started greeting people with a smile, something he hadn't done in months. Sometimes they smiled back, sometimes they didn't. But that didn't matter. Because Daniel remembered what Adam had told him, kindness is not about reward. It's about giving what you can, when someone needs it most. One rainy evening, weeks later, Daniel was walking home. The streets were wet, and the sound of rain hitting the ground surrounded him. He saw a boy sitting near a bus stop, shivering, holding his knees tight. People passed by without noticing, just like they had once ignored Daniel. Daniel stopped. He stood there for a moment, his heart pounding. Memories rushed back, his own fall on the wet road, his coins rolling away, the pain of being invisible. And then, Adam's face appeared in his memory. His calm eyes. His soft smile. His voice. Daniel walked closer to the boy. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. The boy looked up, surprised. His eyes were full of fear and sadness. Daniel recognized that look. It was the same look he had once carried. Without waiting, Daniel sat beside him. He opened his small bag and took out a sandwich he had saved for later. He handed it to the boy. "Eat," he said softly. "You must be hungry." The boy hesitated, just like Daniel had hesitated with the biscuits weeks ago. But finally, he took it and began to eat. His hand shook, his eyes filled with tears. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay. You're not alone." In that moment, Daniel realized something powerful. He had become what Adam wanted him to be. He had carried the kindness forward. The rain fell harder, but inside Daniel's heart, there was warmth. That night, as he walked away from the boy, Daniel looked up at the sky. The clouds were dark, but somewhere behind them, he knew the stars were shining. He whispered to himself, "Thank you, Adam." He never saw Adam again. Maybe he never would. But that didn't matter anymore. Because Adam's kindness had not left. It lived inside him now. It had become a part of him. And every time Daniel helped someone, every time he smiled at a stranger, every time he chose kindness over silence, Adam was there. Not in body, but in spirit. Years later, Daniel would look back on that night in the park, the tea store, the biscuits, the quiet words under the streetlight. He would remember the pain of goodbye. But more than that, he would remember the gift. The gift of being seen. The gift of being believed in. The gift of hope. And he would tell himself, again and again. Sometimes, a stranger's kindness is all we need to remember that life is worth living. The memory of Adam stayed with him forever, not like a shadow, but like a light. And in that light, Daniel found his way forward.